Jeremy, a couple of quick words on this, the end of the event. It was like, it was so much work coming in, so much time, and then it's over.
It's over. It's over. We did it. Yeah, we pulled off a great event. We had 13 teams here. It was phenomenal. We got the best team in the country here. Now they got to hold that shield and come back next year and defend it. So we'll be back.
And we'll be back with a hat like that for me?
Yeah, we will. I'll see what I can do.
All right.
I'll pull some strength for you.
Congratulations, my friend. Well done.
Thanks, Matt.
Next on the College Rugby Wrap-Up, the NCR All-Star Weekend Recap. Exclusive footage, interviews, and fun. Rugby Wrap-Up brought to you in part by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's College Rugby Wrap-Up. We have our all-star panel with Colby Marshall, Zach Lanning, and Josh Resio. I'm Matt McCarthy, just back from Houston. A lot of people down there were saying Houston for some reason, but we're back from Houston, where the NCR, the National Collegiate Rugby Organization's All-Star Weekend Shield Challenge. I think I got that all right. That's a huge acronym. But what a weekend of all-star collegiate rugby in H-Town, Space City, Houston. Colby, why don't you walk us back on the two-day tournament with a brief recap?
For sure, Matt. And what a weekend it was. I mean, you had the tough job of being in Houston, calling, 10 to 12 games over the span of 2 days that you did. The likes of me,
16.
Josh, and Zach got to watch from our couch comfortably. But let's get into a recap of what went on. On day one, each team played 3 games of 2 20-minute halves. And it was obvious that obviously the teams were not used to playing with each other. I mean, these are players coming from all over the country, some of the best players in D1A, in the NCR landscape. You know, it was obvious that they needed a little bit of time to get to know each other's play styles and combat that with the wind and the tough weather that was going on day one. It was just, really tough for teams to get out the gate. But we did see the New England Independent Reds come out on top of Pool A with a 3-0 record, while the Southeast Bears won Pool B, going 3-0 as well on day one. And on day two, I feel like we definitely saw a lot better rugby. Teams were definitely more comfortable playing with each other. The weather was a bit nicer, and we saw 2 squads from Pool A make the championship. That was the New England Independent Reds and the Pacific Coast Grizzlies. New England won this match 18-8 off of efforts from the likes of Jasper Green, Mike Weir, and Chief Chifumbo. The Pacific Coast Grizzlies, even though they lost this game, they had a really impressive playoff run. They won 3 come from behind games. They had 3 games where they came from behind and won leading up to this championship match. So hats off to them for, a great performance throughout the day. As far as the rest of the standings go, we had the Great Lakes Thunderbirds finished 3rd, Southeast finished 4th, the Tri-State Vikings finished 5th, Mid-Atlantic finished 6th, the Midwest squad finished 7th, and the New England Whites finished 8th.
And guys, the Great Lakes Thunderbirds rising stars were younger players trying to get on the radar of getting on the radar. So that was a younger division, or a less seasoned division, if you will. But some of those guys were very good too. General comments from each one of us now on the tournament. Why don't we start with you, Colby?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed the matches over the weekend. I think this is a great way to really sort of map out a plan for the younger players in the college rugby landscape. We obviously know a lot of the upperclassmen and guys that are ready for the MLR kind of, going into next year. But I think this is a great way to see the younger talent and to really track them throughout the years of their college experience as they get closer to being eligible for the MLR draft.
Yeah, no, I agree with Colby. Great weekend, great, chance for players to get noticed. There was one interesting thing that stood out to me watching the teams would opt a lot for the quick take off penalties, tap and go off penalties. I understood that on day one. The conditions were so messy, the wind was so crazy that you're not going to get a lot of distance kicking for touch off those penalties. And the lineouts were kind of a nightmare as well. So you really don't know what you're getting on that end. But then to see it come back on day two, I thought was very interesting. Sometimes they would catch the other team off guard, but these are all the best players in the country. They're focused, they're ready to go. And most of the time, the only people they caught off guard were their own teammates. So a lot of guys isolated without a lot of support coming off of penalties. So I was really interested as to why that became such a trend throughout the weekend. There are a lot of great athletes. Maybe they just wanted to show off some of their skills with ball in hand. But I'd also thought maybe a lot of the kickers would want to show that they have a little bit more pinpoint accuracy off those penalty kicks as well into touch. So interesting thing to watch. Does that become a fad, going forward in the college landscape as well in the regular games? Or is that just kind of a fun, all-star weekend quirk?
Josh, what did you think?
Matt, it was great to see. I think it's a great starting point for NCR to be able to see those guys go down there and play games. Yes, it was sloppy at times. As we've had with other events in Houston, like you said, the wind was crazy. For me personally, it's going to be really exciting to see, how we go from here, right? So we've thrown this great event. Matt, you did a great job down there, working your tail off. How does D1A respond? How do they do, an event similar like this to, as Colby mentioned, give, MLR, USA Rugby more of those opportunities to, see the future talent that we have throughout the United States, and even people that are coming from out of the country to come play at colleges in the States. So it'll be really exciting to see where we take it from here.
You've got the NCC sevens as the counterpunch, if you will, from the USA Rugby sanctioned CRAA group, and that's an interesting one to look at 2 weeks prior to the May Madness tournament. But I'm the ultimate optimist. I'm hoping maybe there's a uniting of the clans eventually. But guys, we are kind of pressed for time here, and that's a whole nother topic, right? We could talk for an hour on that topic, but let's talk about players that maybe up their stock, if you will, maybe put themselves on the MLR radar. Colby, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, man, when I think about players that I enjoyed watching over the weekend, I think of a guy like Chris Stanbeck out of Iowa Central. A lot of people don't realize, but he played fly half for the first time this past fall for Iowa Central Rugby. And, in this tournament over the weekend, he wasn't one of the guys that, really stood out, I guess, but he's a young player that has an insanely high rugby IQ. You saw him find his centers on multiple, short lines throughout the game. He received the ball out of the air very well. And I was just very impressed with his poise at such a young age. I think he's somebody that can eventually climb the ranks of being somebody that can be ready for the MLR in future years.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that Iowa Central Community College is what that school is. And it's a 2-year school. So Coach Brent Nelson is constantly dealing with a turnover after 2 years. Zach. Yeah.
So the couple of guys that I liked, kind of in a similar vein to Colby, I was looking for somebody who rose above, and showed that they have another aspect to their game that is just, better than being the best athlete on the pitch, or just, they showed something a little bit extra, a little rugby acumen, if you will. And that person for me was Noah Mills, the lock for the Southeast Bears. He plays at the Citadel. He's already a physical specimen at 6'3", 245 pounds. So he has, a great build to be a second row or maybe even a loose forward at the MLR level. But what he showed me was an extra level, an extra step to his game, which was he was a facilitator out there. He was great with ball in hand, which you don't often see from a guy that size or playing that position. You saw the Southeast Bears had a great runner in this guy Teixeira in the center line. But, the tries he scored, oftentimes you would see big Noah Mills rumbling down the field with the ball. He was always aware of what was going on around him. Nice offloads, go into contact, going down with the ball. So just another level to his game that I think is, something that MLR scouts might have picked up on and might be interested in getting somebody who can handle the ball with that size at the next level. And then just to mention a quick mention of another guy that really stood out to me was Mark Carney, the fly half from Georgetown. young guy. He looked physically smaller than a lot of the other guys out there. These are some grown men on the pitch, but he never back down, acquitted himself well at the fly half position. He's played rugby since he was 7 years old, which you could really tell. He was finding the space out there. He was really setting up his teammates well, finding good running lines for them. And you always need talent like that at the fly half position. So he's a name to watch going forward. And apologies to his family because of some administrative clerical issues. His name wasn't always mentioned on the broadcast. 2 number 26s running around doesn't make for a fun time in the booth, Matt, I'm sure. But he was really good. And so again, we'll make sure we get his name right going forward in the future.
Yeah. This was an organic thing that happened, and there's some of these teams weren't assembling until Friday or Thursday night. They had never met each other. So the coaching staffs were really stressed. And I know that this particular team was their coaching staff and their coaching staff and management team was particularly under fire because a couple of the other coaches couldn't make it down. And things fall through the cracks. We wanted all the players to have one dedicated number. So for the traditionalists out there that were pounding the tables with harumphs because it wasn't the traditional match day 23, it was impossible in this tournament to do that. And we requested that the players come there with hopefully their own number for the entire tournament for 2 reasons: for us to identify them so they can get their airtime, and 2, so that the MLR scouts, there were 5 teams represented, could indeed identify them readily. And unfortunately, Mark Carney, who I'm hoping it's either Carney and maybe it's Kearney, and I'm going to do it both ways here. So we had him down as Chad Tiernan because there was 2 number 26s on the roster and we only had one name, and we didn't really realize that until the second half of Sunday. So apologies to the Tiernan and the Kearney families.
We've done Mark Carney justice on our show, though. We had him spotlighted in our Players to Watch show last week as well. So we've been helping him out.
Damn right we did. Damn right we did.
I would say a lot of the players we highlighted, guys, just to bring that back up, were guys that made a lot of plays on the pitch there. So kudos around, pats on the back to us. So not that we need it, but congrats to all of us on our foresight.
Exactly. Well said. Josh?
Alon Van Wyk. That man, the small but mighty man from New Mexico Tech, is my guy. He's from Namibia. We've seen this influx of international players coming in and making an impact on their teams. New Mexico Tech team, maybe a lot of people have not been watching throughout the year. He came into Houston, elevated his game right away, and he was everywhere. Such an exciting guy to watch. I think he's got a really great career here in the United States while he's playing rugby. And I was just amazed day in, day out. But no matter what was happening for the team, he was everywhere. He was able to make good runs, and he was kind of my star performer. I think you're going to have some MLR teams taking a look at him, and hopefully his stock has definitely gone up after that weekend.
Who's your second guy?
Another guy, Matt, that I would talk about, if not for hair alone, we could also say it's for his name, Prince Louis Bush IV. I got to say, how does one acquire such an amazing name? And not only the name, right, but to back it up and play really solid rugby throughout the weekend. Kudos to the parents for giving him to the name, and kudos to the kid for, really performing for the weekend. So another guy, I'd say his stock's definitely gone up.
I'm going to cheat here on my picks, guys, because I was there and I got to meet a lot of these guys in person. And my number one guy is Mike Weir at Dartmouth. He was the field general, and he was the one guy that I noticed immediately in the ridiculous wind conditions that was Saturday. It was comical. It was literally, you kick the ball up, you're right in front of the posts. You're going for a conversion or you got a penalty kick. You're directly in front of the posts. You put the ball in the air and it looks like it's going to go through the posts, and then this force field grabs the ball like it's on a huge string and yanks it 20 yards the other way, back in the other direction or to the left. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And players were not exactly adapting to those conditions. They were acting instinctively a lot, particularly with ball in hand. Guys that usually go to foot in certain situations. Mike Weir was one of these guys that adapted immediately for the New England Reds, the Independents. And then on the second day, on Sunday, fortunately, the wins were less, but they were still, they weren't gone by any stretch of the imagination. But some of these kickers who couldn't showcase their kicking talents on Saturday at all were able to do so on Sunday. And I got to mention Killian Burns with his team down by 2 men in the sin bin, 2 bad Bears, Grizzlies in the sin bin, and his team down by 2 points with time running out, or so we thought, because the last play of the game lasted for about 6 minutes, but that's a different story. Anyway, he opts to go for posts from an impossible angle in really tough conditions on Saturday. Despite the fact that it was sunshine on your screens, the winds were still impactful, and he nails it. And this came right after, a certain announcer in the booth said, there's no way a team is going to lose this if they have Matt Conforti from the University of Buffalo on the roster. And as soon as I said that on the air, the Grizzlies came down and scored. So, that was one thing. So Mike Weir gets my first nod, but also my other guy. I'm going to go with another guy, Joseph I, number 28. He was wearing. He's like 6'1" and like 235. And if he was a baseball player, he'd be one of those 5-tool players. He could do it all. And he was doing it all for his team. But guys, I could talk about a zillion of these players over and over for hours, but we can't do that. We have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Looking for your next vehicle? With Sheehy's Easy Search, choose from over 3,000 new and used vehicles. Shop, trade, or buy online or in store. We make it easy with our award-winning service.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
Been blind since I was 4. And I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste. And my beer is Pabst Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
Hey, for fans in the tri-state New York area or players that want to get some notice, there's a 2022 College Fair and Rugby Combine from Rugby, New Jersey on Sunday, February 13th at the Middletown Sports Complex. Check out NewJerseyRugby.leagueapps.com/store. That's NewJerseyRugby.leagueapps.com/store.
I'm Juwan Johnson from the Grizzlies, and you're watching Rugby Matchup. I'm Juwan Johnson from the Grizzlies, and you're watching Rugby Wrap Up.
And we are back. And before I bring the other three out of the green room, I just wanted to get a little airtime for 2 guys that I bonded with over the weekend for different reasons. And the first one up is Joe Castell. Joe, all right, as promised to you, Joe Castell, you have your 3 minutes of fame because you were kind enough to trade me your beloved hat, which we do have a photo of. But Joe, let me tell you people about you a little bit. A, you're wearing Daisy Duke shorts to the team dinner, which immediately caught my eye. A couple of painted fingernails here and there, and you had the hat with the feather in it. So, Joe, you're from Osseo, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, where you are majoring in psychology because you found it interesting and that you'd like to maybe go into sports psychology. You started playing rugby because you were tired of doing nothing, but one would argue that studying is not nothing. Just saying, might be a lost art, right? But favorite players are Sam Underhill and Joe Marler. And you right now are a hooker. And which team were you playing with at the tournament?
With the Midwest. I played on the All-Stars and a little bit on the Rising Stars for the Midwest.
All right, cool. So, A, what did you think of the tournament?
I felt like a summer tournament, just a lot of fun, a bunch of characters and a bunch of really good gameplay.
A bunch of characters indeed, and you are one of those characters, and we need to get into your wardrobe. No, we don't, I don't want to pry, but it was exceptional. It was exceptional, and it had a lot of us nodding jealously that we were not actually in better outfits. Thus, the trade for the hat, for me to try to come close, Joe, just close to touching what you had. Fingernails choice, or is it a fine, or did you lose a bet, or you just like to paint?
I just do it because I like to do it. I think it's one of those things where if I think it's cool, I'm going to do it. Same with my hair. A lot of people have said they aren't brave enough to do it, but why not? It looks cool, so do it.
As a bitter old bald guy, I would be doing all kinds of things with my hair. Your hair would be one of them. I love it. It's great. Fantastic. Don't listen to anybody. And I'm just concerned about the fingernails. Is the polish organic?
That's something I'm going to have to look into and become a bit more conscious moving forward with my next selection, I think.
Just saying, I mean, danger's your middle name because you play rugby, but you don't want to be dangerous with stuff that you put on your skin and nails. And I'm just one of those. Joe. I'm a worry wart, for God's sakes. All right, we're almost up with you. 3 minutes, Joe. But hobbies, what do you got other than rugby?
Longboarding, I do a little bit of that. Just getting in the gym, getting outside, being out and about, doing some things. Just like to lift heavy things and
tattoos. You have a tattoo on your thigh. Explain.
Yeah, I have the my rugby team's tattoo. If you want, I can show it right now.
Let's see it.
All right, it is. Oh, I'm gonna have to stand up a little bit here. This is the Stevens Point Rugby crest, and as you can see, a lot of players on our team will get it once they score their first try. And I scored my first try a couple years ago and got it.
Wow. Usually it was something else, like you had to run naked through the quad, which is not, I'm not recommending that, ladies and gentlemen, by any stretch of the imagination. That is not allowed on campus. But tattoo, that's okay. All right. Fair enough. And that was also the hat, right?
Yeah. Got it right back here.
There's the hat, and it's got the feather. Joe, explain the feather, please.
I was just out golfing with my buddies, found the feather, picked it up, put it in, and said, call me Hawk.
All right, Hawk. I'm with you, Hawk. Joe Hawk Castell, you have been on Rugby Wrap Up.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we had a technical snafu and couldn't get Cameron on, but we will get him on in the future. In the meantime, let's get the three loafers out of the green room and get them back to work. Gentlemen, let's get back to the action. But before we do, gentlemen, this is a great time for our Sheehy Auto Stores pop-up quiz of the day. What was the overtime scenario should we have gone into overtime in the All-Star Shield weekend? If you think you know the answer, raise your hand and I'll call on you. Josh?
Penalty kicks.
Zach?
Total points.
Colby?
Guys, everybody knows it was a 10-minute overtime period followed by a 5-player kickoff.
Ding, ding, ding. And Colby Marshall is today's Sheehy Auto Stores pop-up quiz winner of the day. And Josh, let's not forget our D1A counterparts west of the Mississippi for the most part.
Yeah, we had a lot of talent down in Houston for a weekend, but I think still, no matter what, you have to look at Cal and say that's kind of the crown jewel of rugby in the United States right now. And they showed it in the Dennis Storer Classic. They've won this tournament 16 consecutive times. So they have clearly got a good stronghold on this tournament. They beat a really good UCLA team 38-8. We had saw videos earlier of UCLA starting out their practices for the season, and they looked like a really, really solid team. But Cal's got some seniors, Nathan Silvestre and Marcus Shanklin, 2 tries each, and they kind of just looked dominant throughout the entire tournament. Jack Clark, the coach who basically has a movie name, was pretty humble the entire time, just saying that they had little patches of good play throughout and that they still haven't reached their full potential. But I mean, if you would have watched that tournament, you would have been a little bit scared of Cal as they enter into their spring season. I mean, they looked amazing throughout. Even on the younger side, I want to point out there's one guy, Caleb Thomasine, related to the 7-star Stephen Thomasine. He as well, only a sophomore, was able to come out, get some early minutes in that tournament, and he looked solid. So across the board, from freshmen to seniors, Cal looks like they got another strong team. And I think they're going to be really a hard team to beat throughout the year, especially if Jack is right and they haven't reached their full potential.
And Harry Bennett the former Rugby New York fly half, is the coach of UCLA now. So had to be a bit of a daunting task for him marching out his troops against Jack Clark and those vaunted Bears.
But kudos to UCLA, right? I mean, UCLA, as we said, they're a solid team. They're always up there with Cal, and they're always that one team to challenge them. So, you know, it's only a preseason tournament. I think UCLA still has the potential to beat them come later in the season when they play again.
Yeah, more exciting college rugby, 15s and 7s, a full slate of it ahead of us this spring. Looking forward to it. Final thoughts, Zach?
Just to keep an eye again on that women's 7s and also some international 7s, I believe, coming up this weekend. And also MLR preseason kicking off soon. So we got a lot of rugby outside the college space as well. It's going to be a chock full spring full of rugby. So can't wait.
Can't wait.
All right. I do want to thank my colleagues in the booth for their very, very solid and hard work this weekend. And that is top of the list is John Broker, who had a Herculean effort. He compiled all the data, helped us with names, a constant workhorse, and so was Grant Cole and Pat Clifton. And those guys really, really made it a special weekend. And I think that's it, fellas. Unless I'm mistaken, that is this week's College Rugby Wrap-Up. Thank you, Mr. Josh Rescio, Mr. Zach Lanning, and Mr. Colby Marshall. On behalf of these gentlemen, I'm Matt McCarthy. Thank you for tuning in, and please check out our other stuff. And please tell your mates about us, sign up for our weekly newsletter, and please join our Rugby Wrap-Up Red Cross blood donor team, as blood donations are needed now more than ever.